Have you recently caught financial independence fever? Or maybe like I did, you hit the point where you realize you need to change your spending and increase your income. That's great, but that doesn't mean everyone in your household will have the same epiphany at the same time. Andy Hill is the host of the Marriage, Kids, and Money podcast, and he joins us to share how he got his wife interested in working towards financial independence and how he got his children learning some great money habits too. Welcome to the MapleMoney Show, the podcast that helps Canadians improve their personal finances to create lasting financial freedom. Orwell's mission is to help Canadians make great decisions about credit. To do that, they've taken a product that used to be $23 a month and made it totally free. To get your free credit score, free credit report, and continual monitoring, head over to maplemoney.com/Borrowell. That's maplemoney.com/BORROWELL. Now let's chat with Andy. Hey, Andy, welcome to the Maple Money Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Tom.
I wanted to have you on. I know you've kind of gone through this, and I have a bit too. You get this new idea to sort of deal with your finances, and you're married. you have to get a spouse on board. So can we go right to the beginning of that? Sort of what led you to make this decision in the first place?
Yeah, I guess the first thing that pops in my head when you're thinking about making these financial changes is when I talked to my wife about eliminating our debt. And this was when we were around the time of just after when we got married. We found out we were having our first child. And something like clicked in my brain where it was like, oh, I'm not just living for today and I'm not just living for myself anymore. We are literally creating a human and we are responsible for that human for the rest of her life. So something happened in my brain where it said, hey, I need to start acting like an adult. I need to start taking care of our finances. And the first thing that came up was the finances, was what can I do to do better with my finances and then give my daughter a great life. So I started to consume a lot of personal finance media. I was watching Susie Orman and watching her talk to people and giving them grades on how they're doing and everything like that. And then I picked up Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. And it was really after I finished that book that I got super excited about becoming debt-free. And it was the only way. And this is how we're going to have to do it. And then I remember my wife coming home from work one day, and I met her at the door and I said, honey, we're going to become debt free. And today we're going to sell your car. What do you think about that? And well, let's just say that she did. It didn't go over very well because what I thought in my brain was, it was as if she read the book with me, really, but really she didn't. I read the book and I came up to her assuming that she was just going to be right on board, and it sounded great. And that was sort of the first real money fight of our marriage, and that really kind of kicked things off right there. So I didn't really start off the conversations all that well, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, no, I think our stories are very similar. Right down to getting married, didn't take long to have a kid right after, and going from both of us being very natural spenders, and all of a sudden I had flipped and decided, oh no, we can't do this anymore. we need to stop spending, and we didn't have a lot of debt, but we still needed to pay off what we had. And it was very similar, like where I had read all these books and magazines and blogs, and yeah, I just kind of sprung it on her. I don't remember exactly when, I didn't tell her that she had to sell her car in the first conversation. We did eventually do that, though. We had two cars, and once we had our first kid, she stopped working. So it was more for that reason where we're like, well, we don't need the second car. There are some times I would love to have a second car, but it just seems to work out a lot better to skip that expense.
Yeah, and that's actually where I eventually got around to her. And that's funny that you said that. That was similar to your experience. I came at her with the actions and the numbers. Hey, let's become debt free. Hey, let's sell your car. Let's reach zero in our debt. Those were all numbers, and they were exciting to me because I'm kind of a internal money nerd. But for her, she's more about the emotional side of things. What does that mean? Why would I do that? That sounds uncomfortable. Getting rid of my car and then living on less than we make. Why? And it wasn't until I had those conversations with her about what her internal motivations were. And to your point, it was she was working at a job that she really didn't like, and she was pregnant. And she was like looking forward to some opportunity in the future to maybe be able to stay at home with our new daughter and our future children. So once I kind of realized that, I tried to start speaking her language. Hey, sweetheart, if we live on a budget, hey, sweetheart, if we, pay down all this debt and decrease our expenses, you're going to be able to stay at home with the kids. And that's kind of where I got her a little bit more interested. It wasn't the numbers, it wasn't the goals. That's kind of where my brain was. It was the emotional side of things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess I eventually got there, but it took me a while. I think we're pretty similar that way. How was your debt then? Did you have a lot of debt? Like, was this a big turnaround?
I don't know where yours was, but ours was about $50,000, and about 30,000 of that was my student loans, and about 20,000 of that was her car that she had got. So it wasn't a bunch of credit cards, things like that. We were pretty responsible in our youth. We were still having fun. I like to use my home equity line of credit as almost like my credit card, which was very dangerous. And I had built that up to about $10,000 as well. So we were able to pay that off when we got married. But at this time, when we were having this conversation, it was the $30,000 of student loans and the $20,000 of car loan.
Yeah, mine was a bit less. I don't remember the exact amount, but not much less. Thankfully, I didn't have any big student loans. I went the college route, and I don't think my student loans even hit 10,000.
Oh, that's good.
So that made it a lot easier. So you guys got this paid off. What did you sort of do after that? After you paid off the debt?
Well, I kind of got excited about these financial goals, and it didn't really come out of my brain, where I was saying, hey, we paid off the debt. We hit this milestone. And once we did that, we were able to pay off that debt, and she was able to go from full-time to part-time, and then eventually to full-time stay-at-home mom. So we accomplished that family goal, which was great. And when we had our second child, that's when she was able to go full-time. But at that point, we were already kind of used to living on about half of our income. And I made the proposal to her. I said, hey, if we can just keep living on half of our income, not only can we pay the debts that we have off, but we can also pay our mortgage off in like 5 years. So why don't we just keep up the same intensity and be completely mortgage free in less than 5 years? And again, she came back to, okay, but why? What's in it for me? And that's okay, because it's going to cause a little bit of deprivation, So my conversation to her was, well, if we do this, then we'll be able to go on more vacations, have more fun, finally decorate this new house that we were able to buy together. And maybe I can push towards some work that I love and some things like that. So when I was able to talk to her on the emotional side of things, the things that were important to me on my dreams, and obviously the important things that were to her on her dreams, on developing a home that she liked to live in and going on vacations. That's again where we were able to kind of work arm in arm again to do another crazy thing like pay off our mortgage. And that was the goal that we went after together. And we partnered together for the next, it ended up being about 4 years, meeting every month for our budget party to look over the numbers and see where our expenses are and where we are in our goals. And we were able to pay off the mortgage in less than 4 years with that partnership.
You mentioned budget parties. That sounds a lot more fun than anything we do around budgeting. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And this is, again, I have a sales and marketing background. So this is me trying to essentially spin to my wife that budgeting is a lot of fun. So if I just put the word party at the end of it, then I thought she might show up. No, and actually that's
Like a
pretty much
Tupperware party.
exactly. Yeah, Tupperware party. It sounds a lot more fun, right? So I gave it this kind of sly name. But, what we do is essentially we get together at the first of the month and we do a few things. We review our spending from the previous month and see how we did. We plan out our spending for the next month. We review our goals together. And then lastly, we talk about things that aren't associated with money at all. What's coming up in the month? What birthday parties are we going to? What weddings are coming up? What are things that, what night are we going to do date night? Because we always want to make that happen. So we kind of combine the finances as well as the sort of the family and marriage planning all into this one get together. And in order to make it fun, we use automated programs like Mint that help track everything in order to make it easy. So we're not, messing around with paper and spreadsheets. We bring a cocktail into it or a wine or a beer, something like that, so we can relax. On a beautiful day, we'll sit outside while the kids ride their bikes, and we get it done on a beautiful day. We've even taken our laptops to a restaurant and break out the receipts and do it there. So we try to do it in a way where it fits in with our lifestyle and also try to make it a little bit of fun. And it's a little bit in jest for her, which is fun because she doesn't love it, but she's come to love it over time. And because what those things do is they help us to plan the things that excite her. So we have a set amount of money each month now for her to decorate her new house that she's really new. Now we have about 6 years. Decorate her house. So she gets really excited about what she's going to plan and what she's going to do. And that sort of meeting has allowed her to, get excited about budgeting, get excited about doing these big things together. So it's been a big plan in our marriage, and we've done it since we got married about 8 or 9 years ago. So we've been doing it since then.
Wow. Okay. It sounds like a great way to communicate in general, let alone the money side of it. You said you're doing this once a month?
Yeah, once a month, just the first of the month. So we try to plan it for, maybe like 2 to 3 hours where we've got some separated time away from the kids because the kids won't let us. We've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. So if they're around, it's all attention's on them, right? So we try to do it when the kids are sleeping or when they're off doing something else. We've even gone to like a kid play place where, they'll run around in like a playground and we'll sit there with the laptop and get it done. So we do it once a month, and it's been really helpful for our marriage.
Speaking of this idea of communication, how do you suggest that people should communicate? Like one of the things that comes to my mind is sort of like making sure you're being respectful. But what's your ideas on sort of how a husband and wife can communicate better around this kind of topic?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with our emotions and being able to share those effectively. We've definitely had our fair share of money fights in our marriage, and usually the time that we do is when we get a little bit accusatory, or we are thinking in our brains, well, this is why they did that thing with the purchase, or this is why he wants to save more. When in fact, if we really look into it and share our emotions around why we do things, it becomes a lot easier. So for example, let's just say, this is hypothetical, Nicole comes home, my wife comes home with a purchase that I'm not excited about, or it didn't fit in line with the budget. And I come up to her and I ask her a bunch of questions about it in almost an accusatory way. She's going to get very defensive, right? Hey, I'm just trying to live my life and enjoy myself. Back off. I don't want to feel like I've got somebody on my back all the time. But if she's able to share emotionally how she's feeling, instead of us getting into a fight, hey, when you come up to me and I've purchased something and you start barking at me like I've done something wrong, it makes me feel like I'm not an independent person. Okay, so that's a little easier than just like calling each other names, right? And then on my side, I can do the same. Hey, sweetheart, when you go out and buy things that are above and beyond our budget, it makes me feel like you're not respecting the time that we spend during our budget parties where we figure this out. And then we can come together and talk about both of our feelings for those during this episode, and then try to figure out where we can meet in the middle. Okay, if I'm really excited about purchasing something in the future, and it's outside of our budget range, then that's a time that maybe we should have a call or a meeting or a text or something like that. That way we can kind of figure it out together. And we've definitely done the opposite, where it's like, hey, I don't want to buy that. You do. You're a princess, and I'm a and she would call me, let's say, cheap or something like that. When we get into the name calling, that's when it gets kind of, in a bad way. But if we're able to sit down and effectively communicate, and a big part of it, if you're a young parent, is trying to separate that time so you can actually speak to each other. If you got a kid hanging on your leg when you're having these serious conversations, it does not go well. And then even if you don't have kids, put away the phones for these serious conversations. Put away the distractions. Don't look at the TV. Look at each other. Take the serious time to talk, because as money fights can be a major cause of divorce, and you gotta act like your marriage is the most important thing, because you've committed to it for your whole life.
For sure. Where was I going? I had the same issue with sort of accusing around spending. Do you guys, I know you mentioned this sort of the house decorating portion of the budget, but going back further, when you're trying to fix your finances, did you still keep a certain allotment for each of you as just total, like, no questions asked spending money?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something we've been talking about a lot lately too, is do we need a separate account for each of us to just sort of have this, no questions asked money? And what we've been doing is we've been doing it as a budget line item for quite a while. And we have a few of them. One of them is called Nicole Fund Money. Another one's called Andy Fund Money. And then we also just have a random one on the bottom just called Whoops, because stuff happens, right? Maybe I'll get a parking ticket, or some things happen throughout the month that you don't need, that you want to cover. And we've also developed through trial and error other categories that are really important to both of us, right? So something that's really important to her is to be able to go out and have drinks with her girlfriends during the month, and it's important to me to meet up with my guy friends and grab a lunch or grab a drink. So we have line items for those things in our budget, so they're called out, so there's no issue anymore. Having the line item for her to get her hair done as she wants, we periodically put that in there as a line item through a sinking fund. But we have talked about, physically separating it so it's in separate accounts versus just budget line items. And I've brought that up to her as something like, hey, maybe she would really like this. I want her to feel like she has the autonomy. I don't want to feel like I'm, putting my thumb on her, especially since she's a stay-at-home mom and I'm working, and I don't want her to feel that, like I'm telling her what to do. But surprisingly, she doesn't want to do that. I think she said, I really like the way we have it now. I like that there's budget line items. And again, I think we've developed these through trial and error. We didn't always have all of the great line items. And now, as we've grown in our relationship, we've found out what's very important to both of us, and included that in the budget. And it's been an evolving, budget over the time, but that's really helped us.
I like the idea of sort of resetting your budget line items as you go, when instead of this idea that, like, this is our budget period, and not sort of adjusting for life. One thing that we have found to work a bit. I'm actually personally not a huge fan of budgeting for myself. Now I still recommend budgets to all sorts of people, but we just found it a little too restricting. Like, as long as we're still controlling our money, but so what we did just to kind of keep the spending under control is kind of like, this is how much spending money we have, period, every month. And the idea of that was actually to encourage saving money where we can, because it was sort of like, if you can spend less on groceries, well, you have more spending money.
There you go.
And the whole big pool of money every month isn't questioned now. So it's like, it's got to cover mostly necessities, but it's like, what's left, spend it.
Yeah,
That's the amount.
I like that a lot. And for all of these things, the gurus out there, or the personal finance experts that say this is the way you have to do it, you find the way that works for you and your wife, and stick with it, and move forward, because everybody's marriage is different, and that works well for you guys. This works well for us. Find what works for you, and maybe it's through trial and error, but find what works for you over time. And we've been married for almost 10 years, and it's taken us about 10 years to figure it out. And I'm sure we're going to continue to learn more throughout the process.
I think limits are certainly necessary. One thing that was not working for us was the idea of we had certain budgets for everything, like groceries and whatever else. But what would happen is, you have these oopsies. If something was considered a necessity, it's like that was putting us way too far over the budget. It's like, is spend money, and then, the kids need new shoes, or we got to put them into swimming or something, like things we weren't keeping track of. So that's why we certainly are getting around this idea more lately that just like it's all got to fit in this certain pool of money, and see where we end up, kind of thing, for spending money within that month. But whether it's full on budgeting or by halfway budgeting, it's we certainly found success by at least making sure there are limits, instead of just you have, say, $200 to spend, and then the rest is all on necessities. But those necessities can add up pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how many children do you have? The one?
We have two. So we have a 7-year-old girl, and then we have a 5-year-old boy.
How have I was going to say, how have they gotten in the way, but that's not what I'm going for. How have they changed sort of your ability to kind of keep striving towards this, reducing the spending and staying financially independent?
I think that the reason I started paying attention to my finances in the beginning was because I was becoming a father. And the reason I want to become financially independent is because I'm a father. So my kids have only enhanced my life. Everything that comes from being a father, they cost a little bit more. Yeah, we got to save for college. We got to pay for the swimming lessons. We got to pay for extra food and things like that. That's the most important money I'll ever spend, and I'm going to figure out a way to cover that. So I guess when I think about how have they inhibited the plans, I don't think they've been inhibited the plans at all. Really, I just see it as the cost of being a father, the opportunity to become a father. The table stakes for becoming a dad, because that's really what I wanted to be a dad for so long, and it's so important for me to be a father, and it really brings the most joy in my life possible. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about being a parent that loves his kids, who's also on his path to financial independence.
So does it really just kind of go back to budgeting? Like if they want to, there's all sorts of extra expenses, but it's just a matter of being ahead of the game.
Yeah, we factor it in. Yeah, if for example, we're planning the summer, and we want Zoe's interested in doing tennis, and we want to give it a shot, and we want to have her learn some life skills that she's interested in. So yeah, that's going to be another, whatever, call it $100 a month. What aren't we spending on in order to make that happen? So can we dial back the weekend entertainment so our daughter can learn a new skill? Sure. We're lucky enough to be making 6 figures plus. So it's not like I'm scraping by. There's a lot of folks out there where it's a very big luxury to be able to have your kids do all of these extracurriculars. And I feel very blessed to have that opportunity. We are going to be making some transitions over the next couple of years, and maybe we won't be able to live on 6 figures and try to figure that out. So there is always an opportunity for us to look and decide what is a top priority in our life right now. Are we going to be able to do kid birthdays with themes this year, or next year when we're not making as much money? Are we going to be able to take that out? And those are just little things that I think if we allow our kids to get used to as the norm, then they're always going to expect. But we've had a lot of conversations with our kids, and we're open and transparent with them about why we spend money and what's important to us, and that all of these things do cost money. And I think if we continue to have those conversations with them, they'll be on the journey with us. They'll get it. They'll understand. At least I hope they will.
Yeah, I've once again, it's very, very, very similar where I'm not sure, and I've said this in a past episode too, but I'm not sure if I'm fully teaching my kids about money as well as I want to. I think they still find it a bit magical that you can whip out a credit card and they can get toys. So I'm trying to close that gap a little bit. Things like giving them chances to earn money now and buy their own things. It seems like when we were new parents, and granted we were a lot worse with our finances because that's when we were just starting to turn things around. When we were new parents, they were getting toys, so many toys, and all the time. And we started to reduce that. I'd still like to reduce it more. Things like birthdays and Christmas, we would buy them toys, and then the rest of the extended family would buy them so many toys. And so, yeah, I'm a little concerned when you bring up how to kind of teach your kids about this, that we're finding a little bit of trouble there. Do you kind of, your kids are about 2 years younger than mine. Do you find that you're dealing with this? Like, how do you sort of teach them this?
Yeah, I mean, something that we started a couple of years ago is a chore and reward program at our house. So every Saturday we get up and the kids each have 3 chores to do at our house in order to contribute. And for those 3 chores, they get $1 for however old they are. So Zoe gets $7 and Calvin gets $5. And all of the chores, they're all age appropriate. So my 5-year-old who just turned 5, he'll help me to go around the house and empty the waste baskets, right? So I'll hold the bag, he'll dump it in, or vice versa, and we'll do it together. Or he'll empty the dryer and throw things in there. So these are all like age appropriate activities, but the point is that they're learning that with contribution you get reward. And that's just sort of how we want them to understand how life really works. You do hard work and you get paid for it. And then when we take that money afterward, we separate it into 3 different jars: once spend, save, and give. And we have conversations around each of those. So spend, we want them to make smart money decisions with that money. And it's different for each of my kids. My Zoe loves the spend jar so much, and talking to her about giving is a little bit more difficult. And the conversation around giving for Calvin is a little easier, and he likes to save. So I'm, me being the saver guy, I'm going to have a little bit easier conversations with him versus Zoe. So my wife helps with the responsible spending side of things with Zoe too. So it's been fun to have these conversations. And I haven't always been the best giver personally. In 2017, our family gave about 1% of our income. And 2018, we gave 3%. And this year, in 2019, we're going to try to give 5%. And the reason we're trying to give more, not only is because I feel it's the right thing to do, but it's also something I realized when we started this program. I was teaching my kids, hey, make sure you give your money. But I wasn't really giving my money. So how am I going to be a good example if I'm not doing it myself? So it was also a learning process for me. How do you give money? How do you find something that you're passionate about in order to give it away? And being such a saver myself, that was kind of tough for me to let open my fist and then let the money go. So it's been a learning process, and the kids are really helping me to become a better giver, and we're doing it together. So I guess to answer your question, the Chore and Reward program has been great, and then we're doing our best to model good behavior, whether it's with spending, saving, or giving, for that matter.
With the giving, that's when you got to pull the old fashioned do as I say, not as I do.
Right, exactly.
With the splitting into jars, is it equally split?
So we do about. So for example, let's do Zoe. So she gives $7. So we do $1 in her give jar, and we do $2 in her save jar, and then the rest goes in her spend. So it's about, if you think about a typical budget, maybe somebody's saving 20% and they're giving 10%, and then the rest they've got to go to their spend. Obviously, a typical budget, you got a lot more things to save or to spend on with your bills and everything like that. But it's just helping her understand that a little bit goes in each and they all have a purpose. So for the give jar, every quarter we get together and we pool up that money, and we do something called the Big Give. So I review 3 charities with them, which I found that might be interesting to them. I show them little YouTube videos or videos on their website, and they get to learn about these charities and say, hey, that one calls to me. That's interesting to me. Or they bring one to me that they learned about in school. And then we give online together and we give to that charity. We get a milkshake and make it a little bit more fun for the kids. You see what I'm doing, like the budget parties and then the Big Give. I try to bring the word party into it, or give them milkshakes. Exactly. But something cool really happened the last time we did the budget party in the fall. We wrote a little note to a charity that we gave to. It was one of Mitch Albom's charities. He's a very good author that we're very fond of here in Michigan. And we wrote, hey, this is from 4-year-old Calvin who wants to give his, give money to help people get roofs. Lucky enough, the Mitch Albom organization wrote us back and said, hey, can we do a little story on Calvin? And so that we contacted them, and they wrote a little story on their blog. And then they had a little radio-a-thon maybe a month later, and they invited Calvin to be on, live TV with Mitch Albom and meet him. And it was just a really cool moment. It all started from just this great program we were doing, and the kids doing through the Chore and Reward program. And hey, we got to meet a New York Times bestselling author and be a part of this really cool, memorable moment that I hope that he'll remember, hopefully through the Facebook video and everything like that we collected. And it'll become something that will be a tradition for our family.
Yeah, that's great. Just to get that sort of instilled in them early. When something bigger like that happens, that's something that they actually will remember. They may not remember their 3 jars necessarily, but that puts a little more attention on it.
Absolutely.
So for listeners of this episode, how can they make this change? Like if they haven't done this yet, they're new to sort of fixing up their finances. They have a spouse. There's certainly different types of people. There's budgeter. Well, I don't think budgeter is a word. There's people that are frugal and they're spenders. How do they kind of bridge that gap and take this next step?
I think the first place to start, the best place to start, is just with a relaxing, fun night with your spouse, and where you talk about your dreams. What's most important to you? What's the end goal? What kind of marriage do we want to have? Do we want to have a marriage of purpose? Do we want to start our own business? Do we want to travel a lot? Do we want to leave a job that we don't like? What is going on in your brain? Both of you share individually what your big dreams are. And nothing's too lofty in this session, in this date. Like, have fun with it. Say, I would love to travel the world. I would love to be a part of a mission that helps, cure this disease. I would love to quit my job and be a photographer, full-time photographer. Great. Share those dreams with each other, because that's really where it starts. We got married not just to talk to ourselves and be who we are individually. Us combined with our spouse, we're like a super team. It's great. We're going to help each other to fulfill our dreams, and we're going to have fun while doing it. So if we can think about marriage in that fashion and have a opportunity to share with each other those big dreams, I think some incredible things can happen. And then all the little tactical things can, of course, happen after that. Yes, live on a budget, spend less than you make, pay off the debt, those important things, invest for the future. But it really has to start with the dreams and your partner being there to understand what's most important to you. Because at the end of the day, they want to make you happy. They want to help you with your dreams, and you want to help them too. And that's really what the partnership's about. So if you can start there, it can be a great way to kick things off.
Now, I feel like I should have asked this in the other order, because I want to go from that great description to the negative side.
Okay.
What if this is breaking down a little? you mentioned, like, of course, all couples will get in fights, but what if this money thing's becoming a real issue? How do they? So instead of just going from sort of a flat level to wanting to improve, how do they turn it around where they're really butting heads? Like, if someone just won't stop spending, like how do they sort of make that work out?
Yeah. Well, if you're having repeated communication about things that are really important to you, sharing your emotions, and it's just not coming across, there is nothing wrong with going to a third party, a marriage therapist. Nicole and I started sessions about a year and a half ago with a marriage therapist. And originally, I'm like, okay, man, is this feeling like, there's something wrong with us? Do I feel like failure or whatever? We went for our first session, and man, it was so nice. This person is there to help you effectively communicate better. If you wanted to get in shape, you'd go to a physical trainer, right? Think of marriage therapy as the same fashion. You go, and this person helps you to effectively communicate better. They help you think about reasons that maybe you have certain problems about money or certain views about money. A lot of it comes from our childhood. That's what I've discovered a lot through this process, is that I think about money in a certain way because of the way I grew up, or the certain way because my parents talked about money. And my wife does too. And again, there is nothing wrong with either one of our views about money. They are just different. So if you could just put yourself in their shoes and understand where they've been, that'll help a lot. And a marriage therapist will help you a ton in this process. And for you frugal folks out there, and you're like, oh, that sounds pretty expensive. It's just it's an inexpensive copay for me to go there and pay for it. So depending on your insurance situation, it might not be, an expensive venture at all. But if you're going to make an investment, your marriage is a great place to do it.
That's great. You made a much more positive answer than I set you up for. So I like the idea of talking to a counselor. Again, this goes beyond just money, but certainly it's good relationship building either way. Can you let people know where they can find you online?
Absolutely. So I have a weekly podcast called Marriage, Kids, and Money, and it can be found on any major podcast player. But the blog is a great place to find me at marriagekidsandmoney.com. And for your listeners, I have a free ebook there called the Young Family Wealth Playbook, where I've had the chance to interview over 100 young millionaires, debt-free parents, and rock star entrepreneurs. And I've shared it all in this document for people to succeed and have a great family life. So you can find that again at marriagekidsandmoney.com and download it there.
That sounds perfect. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. That was not only some great insight into discussing money issues, but also just having solid communication with your spouse in all matters. You can find the show notes for this episode at MapleMoney.com/Andy Hill. Have you joined our community on Facebook yet? You can be part of the Facebook group by looking up Maple Money Community on Facebook or going to MapleMoney.com/community. And speaking of Facebook, next week we're going to have Bobby Hoyt on the show. Bobby has an awesome Facebook side hustle that might be for you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.